Good morning and welcome to H3 TV, where we talk about navigating disruption with hope, health, and happiness. We all face disruptions on a small scale, all the way to a category 5 hurricane. We face disruptions in our professional, personal, and literal lives. And so I like to come to you every week since 2020 and bring a guest and talk about how do you navigate whatever disruption you're going through. One thing we know about our listeners is that they run businesses, they lead organizations, they run families, they take care of themselves. And we love to come and encourage you with whatever you're going through, interruption to disruption. And so we just appreciate you being here. And we always want to remind you that you're welcome to ask questions or make comments anytime throughout the show. So please help me welcome to the stage today my guest, Ted, who's going to share his wisdom. Hey, Ted, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Ann. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. So thank you for being here. Ted, tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? Where do you live? What do you do?
So my name is Ted Smith. I live in Central Florida, Winter Garden or Orlando area. It is gorgeous outside all the time. And I run a youth sports organization called I9 Sports. We are the largest youth sports foundation in the country. We span from New York to Hawaii. We have over 238 franchises, and our mission is to teach kids life skills through sports. So I'm truly blessed to do what I do. I am working my dream job, and I feel like that's part of the 1% in this world. And I can tell you right now, there is a lot of trials and tribulations through it, but I would not change a single thing. I am truly happy and love what I get to do every single day. And man, that's a win.
That's awesome. Well, I also, Ted, am in that 1%, and I know it is unique, and I try to always be grateful because I'm a professional speaker and certified coach and consultant now, certified DISC. But I live on Fort Myers Beach, where I want to agree with you. It's always beautiful, but it's been storming for the last hour, so my dog's terrified at the moment. Hopefully he won't come on, but you never know. He gets a little shaky during the storms. But then the sun comes out, right? It's beautiful in Florida. It storms and then the sun. So tell us, Ted, when you think of the word disruption or a storm, literal or figuratively, what comes to mind for you? How would you define that word?
Well, there's a million different things that could come to mind, right? Obviously, living in Florida, when we think of storms, we think of hurricanes, we think of seasons that come around with it. We think of humidity that comes with it, right? But having children, working with children, managing my own business, the word storm is very prevalent in my life, right? Across the board. And to me, I guess really what it means, it's a challenge that needs your attention at any form, right? If we've got a massive hurricane coming in, well, I've got to move my umbrella that you see behind here off my patio. I have to put in some work to make some changes to accommodate the storm, because in the grand scheme of things, I think storms are always going to come and they're going to run their course. It's how we handle the storm coming in every facet. So in my business, I get storms all the time as we have part-time employees, right? We're a 1 day a week style operation. So I'm not paying anybody's life bills, but I also create a fun environment for people to work. So I hire a lot of high school kids, or I hire a lot of retired people. And at the end of the day, that is a massive storm when I get 4 a.m. phone calls that say, hey, I'm not going to be here today. Whatever excuse you want to hear, I have bloody nose or whatnot, or I look at your Instagram and see that you were at a wedding yesterday and I know why you're not showing up, right? But that's a storm that we have to counteract. So my job is partially to be in front of those situations, have curated backup plans to put us in a position to be successful. Because as I grew up, even in the restaurant business, you were more capable of able to shut down a section and not make that work. But here in my business today, the show must go on, right? We're fully like an event planner. So I've got kids counting on people to be out there. So I can't just say Johnny didn't show up today because he wasn't feeling good. I've got to have somebody else to come in and manage that situation, right?
Yeah.
So
I like, Ted, that you said a storm. So we're just getting back just a little bit. I know you got a lot of stories. I love it. Is you're saying a storm, a disruption demands your attention. requires your attention. I think it demands your attention. One of the things I love to teach people about is the difference between interruption and disruption, right? And so as you're talking about, obviously, I've been a business owner, you're a business owner. It is certainly an interruption to our life when those people call in sick, and we're counting on them. We're depending on them to show up. And so that is a real disruption. I always think about like, what category is it? Is it a 1? Is it 2? And I think partially even in your speaking, as we know we have listeners that own businesses, it's always nice to have a few backup plan people. Like, who can I fill in if this person doesn't show up? Or can I get 3 people there in case one doesn't show up? Or what are the different things we can navigate and still be financially responsible with our business? So you're right. I think you said it requires, and I was thinking requires, it demands our attention. When something hits us that we're not prepared for, it makes us wake up to like, oh, I wasn't planning on that 4 a.m. text, but now I have it. What do I do with it? So Ted, I want to kind of move and think about what for you, and you kind of started this, and maybe this is the one you want to talk about, but when you're really going through a disruption in your life, something that majorly takes the breath away in your business or in your personal life, what is a storm that you have overcome, a disruption that hit you, but you are back standing again? Do you have one in mind that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think I've got a few, but one was right when I took over the business. I purchased it as an existing business, and the previous person was a wonderful person, but they were ready to go, right? And part of the process was they were supposed to help me get my feet wet to walk into the business. And by day 2 of owning the business, there's no form of communication left with that person, right? So I felt, from a storm perspective, I felt like I was standing in the middle of a tornado. I was right in the eye of the storm, and like it felt like things were calm because it was just me by myself, but all these things spinning around me, and I didn't know what was a priority section of decision-making process, right? So I'm out here and I'm trying to set up my fields, and I've got 500 kids showing up. And I learned the difference between needs and wants instantly. I was thinking optics. I'm trying to set up tents in all these locations. So when people pull up, they're like, oh, wow, it's going to look beautiful. And we know exactly where to go. And here are these signs. And what ended up happening was that people started showing up, and we didn't even have the soccer fields completed yet, right? I was so focused on how I wanted the experience to look when they showed up that I went to my wants instead of what my needs were in a priority setting. And that was a big lesson for me right out of the gate, was always secure your needs up front. Make sure what you're promising and expectations that you're setting, you have ready to go. And then you can start adding in the ancillary wants, the exciting glitter and glam that makes it more personalized for you. But if we don't run the expectation or have it set up for them, 1, instantly you look super unorganized. 2, you look like you don't know what you're doing. And 3, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, which also gives the impression that things aren't going right. Right. So for me, I learned really quick in business to handle my wants and definitely get my needs taken care of first and create a separate list.
Yeah, I think, Ted, it's really important what you shared. So my first gym was an existing gym, and basically right after we bought it, the people ghosted us as well. And that overwhelmed, where do you even start? So I know we have listeners that own businesses that have a dream of buying a business. And when you're buying an existing, it usually comes with a lot of complication, as well as some tools and many missing tools from the toolbox. And so I think it can be super overwhelming, and there's so many things to juggle. So I think your point there was focus first on the needs in your life, professionally and personally. First the needs, and then once you get strong in those, you can start to add in the wants. What else can make it look beautiful, can post, can do whatever. So you jumped right in with 2 feet, all these little kids, which there's so many elements of that. So when you were feeling overwhelmed at the end of the day, and maybe some things went right and some things didn't go as planned, I always think that's an important thing about being a business owner. We have a vision, but that's not exactly how it always works out. How did you stay hopeful that you were going to be able to manage all the kids, get the right people hired, manage all the equipment, get there early enough to set it up, get it taken down. How did you stay hopeful to keep going when you felt overwhelmed and first owning the business?
Man, great question. The number one thing right off rip was the reason I struggled with the wants and needs aspect is that in my mind, I wanted everybody to know that somebody new was in town, right? This wasn't the same program they'd been coming to. So I wanted to see and create an environment that was different to showcase what's coming, right? But again, I learned really quick that number one, we've got to take care of the needs. Then we hit the wants. The reason that I stayed strong through all this, and I'm 5 years deep into it now, is that I had to convince my wife that this was a great opportunity to buy this business. And she has been my strongest supporter across the board in everything we've ever done. So I think it's vital to have somebody that buys into you. But she made me write her a business plan and explain to her how this was going to work and how we'd be good at it. And my number one answer to her was that I'm going to create a culture. And if I get to be the top level of the culture and we get to progressively move that down, all the other stuff we can figure out. The logistics, the mapping, the communication, the financials, we can put right people in position to do what they're going to do. But where we will make this difference is in our culture and understanding that it's a journey. It's not going to happen tomorrow. We are going to make some mistakes. We are going to listen and learn from what those mistakes may be. But the driving force is that we are going to maintain this as a culture. We know what our vision is, and we're going to stay in line to what that vision is. And to be honest, that's been the greatest success part of my journey so far.
Yeah. Ted, so for me, what I pulled out of all of that is 2 words. So I'm always looking for what is the simplest form to teach our audience how to do this when they're feeling overwhelmed. And what I heard was have a plan and have a partner. Have a plan and have a partner. And so writing it out, but knowing what to do next, and then having a partner. And what I mean by that is any one other person that supports your vision, your dream, that you can bounce ideas off, that you can get clarity with. And I think you had a partner and you had a plan, and that's what kept you going. And so the next question I always like to ask people is, especially when we're dealing with the stress of running a business and owning a business and all of that, is how did you take care of your own personal health? And when I think of health, yes, physical, but also emotional, mental, financial, spiritual, your career health, your relationship health. So health as a whole human with the stresses of running a business. Do you have maybe just 3 keys of how you stayed healthy? Maybe it's a routine, maybe something that our audience could do if they're feeling kind of overwhelmed with juggling a new business. What are some things you did or you would encourage people to do to stay healthy in the midst of running a business?
Well, my kids were the number one thing, right? So I'm 40, I'll be 44 in September. So I grew up in the era of convenience, fast food, preservatives, all the things that makes a McDonald's sandwich last for 800 years, right? And I'm teaching young minds, and I don't take the platform that I have lightly, right? So I understand that when I teach kids, whether said sport or whatever we're doing, that they're very receptive if you give them the opportunity to be receptive, right? So I use that same platform with my children. So I decided that I didn't want to feed my kids the way that I was raised, right? So I use things like the Yuka app, which I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but it's a free app you can put on your phone, and it's for hair products and it's for food. And you scan the barcode and it'll tell you whatever chemicals or things that are in it, right? Mm-hmm. We live our house by that rule. We don't buy things that way. We cook. And I wanted to lead by example. So we go to the farmer's market, we get fresh fruits, we get fresh vegetables, and I cook meals every single day. The greatest part about being a business owner, and at least my vision of it, is that we can work all day long, right? So I walk my kids to school. I help them with their homework during their time. We spend family time together, and then I might work till midnight doing that at the other aspect. But I, again, don't take that lightly. So being healthy was part of that. Was first the food. I wanted to get the food, and I wanted to, it started with me by leading by example with my kids. Because when I would sit down and make them eat healthy food and good food, and I'm eating a fried chicken sandwich, well, they asked me, well, why are you allowed to eat that, Dad, and not me?
Yeah.
Well, Well, the answer is I shouldn't,
Do
right?
you, yeah. Do you have like a morning routine that you do, something simple that our listeners could do to kind of take care of your health, your mind, or your body?
I do. I drink mud water.
Okay.
It is one of my favorite things on the planet, but it's all natural mushrooms and blase blase. You can find links for it on there, but I supplemented that out instead of coffee. I used to drink 5, 6 cups of coffee a day. I'm not going to tell you coffee's bad. I love coffee, but anything in an aggressive manner is too much. I can drink one mud water a day. It gives me the same caffeine that I needed. It's natural and it's healthy for my body. My next routine is I take my dog for a run. We run about 1 to 2 miles every morning. My kids usually like to come with me. And then we do about a 30-minute body workout with my kids. I do
Okay.
that with them, right? We don't do weights that's going to hurt them or anything like that, but we'll do a couple push-ups. We'll do a couple jump rope, stuff like that. Small routine where I'm just trying to teach them the routine of health is important. Doesn't have to take up their whole day, but it is incredible to spend those moments in time with your kids. No matter what you're doing with them, the greatest conversations come just from time, right?
Yeah, Ted, I think you're not only doing a physical component. We know that movement is medicine. We know that movement helps our brain, helps our emotions, helps us self-regulate, but also you're implementing with that your relational health, having that intentional time with your kids. And I love that. I think it's really important to not just have physical health, but to have those other aspects as a gym owner, recognizing people are one and everything affects each other. You know, sometimes when we're overwhelmed, it can steal our joy. And so one of the other things I like to think about is, Ted, how do you stay happy or bring humor when stress elevates? It can bring out snarky. We want to decrease the snarky, decrease the cortisone, and we want to find laughter, humor, and happiness. What are some things that you and your wife implement, or you and your kids, or you and your business partners into your life to bring happiness and humor in the midst of stress?
You got to define what you enjoy, and you have to understand what you enjoy, and you've got to create time for it at the end of the day, right? No matter what business we do or what job we work or all the stresses that come in life, we have to block out set amount of times for our day, right? So
Yeah, so that's what I want to know. What do you do? What do you do?
right. So I run. My son still loves me coaching him, so I coach his basketball team, and I have for like the last 14 seasons in a row. But I run a practice in my neighborhood for all kids. Anybody that wants to show up. I've got 5-year-olds and I've got high school kids that show up, and all I do is give them love and attention and teach them some skill set, and they all enjoy it, and it builds friendship. I obviously am a sports nut, so I play fantasy sports, right? I
Okay.
sometimes find a way to shut my mind off, because if not, it will just continuously run. So this is dumb, made up, doesn't matter anything, but it brings me joy. And whether I spend 15 minutes a day just looking at it and reading a couple stats, or this guy went 7 for 12 this week or whatever, it brings me joy acting like a general manager of a said team, right? Doing things with my kids, cooking, right? I love to cook. So I watch cooking shows on TV when it's my downtime, because it doesn't make my mind work. It just lets me breathe, right? That's it. So
I
those are
love
the things that I do. I try and just shut it down and just, you can kind of call it stupid TV or whatever it is.
mindless. How about mindless, Ted?
Mindless is the right
And
answer, right?
I think, Ted, that really what I wanted the audience to hear, and I love what you said, is that we have to figure out what brings us joy, first of all. I always say, like, have a list of 10 things that you really love, that really bring you joy and peace, and put them on your computer or your fridge, because when you are overwhelmed and stressed, you can't think of them. You're like, nothing. I'm losing my mind. But if
Right.
you already know fantasy football, watching the cooking channel, these are mindless things. I manage a team for 5 minutes in one of my fantasy leagues. I watch a recipe and get inspired about what I want to make that night. I think it's that mindlessness, taking away the pressure that comes with, as much as we love our work, as much as we're in the 1%, there is pressure and responsibility to running a business, to earning money, to paying the bills, to managing employees, that can get exhausting and overwhelming. So I love that you kind of have these go-to. It's beautiful what you do for your neighborhood and for all the kids. And I'm sure that does bring you happiness. But I really wanted to think about, how do you self-care just for yourself. And I think the watching mindless, cooking channels and fantasy leagues. So what I want to know, Ted, is, we have listeners that they're starting a business or they are in a business and it is not going as smooth as they envisioned. They have this, we always say people love pizza. They want to own a pizzeria. Well, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes just because you love something, it's hard. Just because you love sports doesn't mean it's easy to run a sports franchise. So what is one tip you would love to give our listeners? Maybe they're thinking about owning a business or they just have of something you wish somebody would have told you before you bought this franchise.
Man, wow, what a great question. Some of the things that I would have been taught, that I guess the number one thing would be that you're not going to have the right answer all the time, and that you need to be okay with that. And as you manage your team, at least where I've come across it is treating them as equals. You're just an employee with them, and we have a different said title. I teach my team all the time. I never have anybody call me boss or owner or any of that setup. I'm just another employee with them, and we have different roles. And as long as we're all buying into what the common goal is, and we're utilizing what would I say in our business is aces in their places, right? That's what I tell them. I say, we could have the greatest hammer in the world, but if I need a screwdriver, it really doesn't make a difference. So I try and remind my team that all the time. I try and remind them what I'm good at. I try and remind them what they're good at. And I think when you build a team in that format, it really brings so much joy to running the business because everybody's doing what they like, right? I mean, I've hired guys and I put them in as a referee, and then I see them out there sluggish and barely blowing the whistle. So I go ask him, do you like refereeing? He's like, not really. I'd rather coach the team. I'm like, well, we need a spot for a fill-in floater for coaches. I move them to there. They're happier, right? And if they're happier, they work better. And that's how I felt when buying this business. I loved what I did previously. I worked in hospitality. I was a bartender and restaurant manager for years. But when I got into this, I knew what made me happy about it. And that was engaging with these kids, bringing joy to young kids through an avenue of sports, right? And that's really what we're doing. I'm not a high-end sports teacher. I'm not preaching scholarships to these kids. What I'm doing is teaching life skills like words like communication and determination and accountability and inclusivity. I'm just finding an avenue that they enjoy, and I'm teaching them this life skill through that avenue. And when we get our team thinking in that same manner, you really create something awesome. And that's probably the biggest thing I've learned through business, that it's going to be hard and you do have to wear hats, but find a way to put people in a position that they're the ace in their place.
Yeah, I think, Ted, two things you said in that I would pull out is, one, you're not going to know everything. And it doesn't matter if we own or lead, we're not going to know everything. And two, you need diversity of personality. So I've been teaching DISC for about 10 years, but just this month got certified in it. And it's all about, and I say the reason our gym ran so well is we had D, the dominant, dominant. That's not the right word. But maybe dominant was my personal trainer. Then I'm the I, the influencer. Then there was an S, was our manager. My husband was a C, conscientious and steady. And you need diversity of personality and finding the right person, the right fit. So having that DISC assessment and working with individuals to dominance, that's what they call it, to be in the right place. Not only does it serve you as an organization owner, but it serves them, because we're much happier going to work when we like what we're doing rather than I have to do this. I'm bitter and I'm going to be snarky and I'm going to be sluggish. And so I love that example of your referee. I also love your coffee mug. I don't know how much you know about me and my work, but I am, or your mud mug in your case. But I teach about why we should all be pineapple people. So my TEDx is life lessons from pineapple. And I saw the pineapple and I was like, oh, he's a pineapple person, whether he knows it or not.
Yes.
So I love that. It's about kindness and seeing and valuing people. So one thing I want to ask you, Ted, is, do you have a success story, whether it was with somebody you hired or one of the students that came? Tell us a story about something where you saw an evolution or a transformation of somebody. You brought them in to work for you or to play, and they kind of just weren't sure. And you saw them come to life. I love that you're saying you love sports. And so you use sports to teach life skills. I call them, they are not soft skills. They are essential skills that we are missing in our world. And so you use some of the skills that you teach and using sports, whether it's an employee or a kid, and a success that you had. Do you have a story you can share?
Yeah, I mean, we could be on here for 4 hours.
Well, let's just pick one.
With this. So I'll pick one. I'll pick one of my first ones and my favorite ones, right?
Awesome.
So we were playing basketball. We had kids playing basketball. There was this boy. He was 6 years old, and he came in with headphones on because we're playing in the gym, and he was high-functioning autism, right? And we have a lot of autistic kids, muscle growth development kids, kids with Tourette's, all of that play in our program, right? And I'm a struggle bus when people call things handicaps or that, because it's not. I think every single person on this planet learns and listens differently. You do, I do, my wife does, these kids do. And what we end up doing is boxing everybody in and saying, oh, because you're said this, you have to be taught this way, and you have to play in this said league, and you can't play here. And I want to change that narrative. And that's a massive thing that I work diligently with. And we've grown a ton in that aspect. But to the point with this young boy, he came in, his sister was playing the game, and he was scared. He was so scared. It was loud. There were so many people in there, and he didn't know what he wanted to do, and he didn't want to be involved. So I walk over to him and I say, hey, young man, how about me and you just come over here and play together, right? So we started that aspect, and I taught him how to shoot a ball. I said, bend your knees, jump, hit the box. Say it over again, say it over again. And we just simplified, and I bent down when I spoke to him so that way we're on the same level to eliminate his form of intimidation, right? And then he started making shots and smiling. So I'm like, we're making headway. This is cool, right? You start seeing him getting engaging. But now it's time for the game to start. And that's 5-on-5 kids running. So I asked the coach, I said, hey, I'm just going to hold his hand, and me and him are going to walk up and down the court today. And we're not going to play in the game. You're going to play 4-on-5. You're going to lose the game, most likely. I need you to not care, because this is what we're doing. He's like, I'm all in. So I did. I walked up and down the court with this young man, and we did it the whole game. Me and him stayed together, held hands, defense, we come back, go forward. When I tell you now, he's played in my program for almost 8 seasons. He scores 20-plus points a game. He averages almost 12 rebounds a game. He is playing multiple sports across the board. He does not wear headphones, and his dad to this day still tells me, Ted, the moment that you gave him of treating him like a real person instead of somebody that had an issue built his confidence. And that is one of the number one things that I focus on, is building confidence in our youth. Life today is tough. Life today has a lot of pressure. And sometimes kids just need to watch a cooking show to close that mind out and have mindless moments of fun. Because my favorite class in college was psychology of play. And I think it's a real thing. And I gave that kid that moment, and he took it and ran with it. And I've got a million success stories off of that. But that is my story. That is my driving force. I have a picture as my background on my computer of me and him laying on the basketball court together, just hugging me after one of his games after he had played. To know that you can have an impact on somebody is amazing. For me to have a platform of thousands of kids I reach, and if I get an opportunity to create an impact like that, I'm so thankful to do what I do every day.
Yeah, I love that, Ted. Great story. I have dyslexia and ADHD, and people say, oh, you're disabled, or you have whatever they call it now, neurodivergent. And I'm like, no, I learn differently. But here's the reality. We all learn differently. And when you see me as an individual rather than as a label, I am set free to do all that I can do. I'm still a terrible speller. People read my social media just to correct my spelling. And I say, if you have time, you go for it. but how I see the word looks right to me. And what I love is that you saw this young man as an individual and you created inclusiveness and belonging, which everybody, no matter what we look like, no matter our great success, no matter our great failure, or no matter our difference, wants to be included, wants to be seen, wants to be valued. So I just congratulate you and celebrate you. I'm sure you do have thousands of stories. But I love that you saw this person. And what I also think about in my work, so I'm a speaker and a writer, so I get the privilege of influencing people for good, making a positive impact every day, is that when we influence one, we influence many. So the fact that you saw him, you valued him, well, then therefore his dad was impacted, the team was impacted, the other coaches were, like, people saw something and it made them think differently about themselves, let alone how they interact with other people. So whenever we make an impact in one, we're making an impact in many. And I always think that, I think whether I speak to 6 or 6,000, I know that many will be affected by the words of what I say today and by the work of what you do and how you speak. So that is beautiful. So, Ted, I know our listeners are going to want to get to know you and hear more of your stories. So what's the best place to connect with you?
So it's through Instagram or Facebook. It's the same login, right? We're at I9 Sports IS 313, right? So
IS, what does the IS stand for?
it's just because it's a franchise. So this is how they label us. They don't let me change it. So
Okay.
if you just think of like what you see on my hat, I9 Sports, right?
Okay.
It's the letter I, the number 9, the word sports is 313, right? If you follow that, you can see us on Instagram. I have tons of content galore through there. I have a photographer that comes out and shoots and edits film of these kids living out their best life.
So
And
I'll
me
just,
as well with them.
yeah, beautiful. So I'll just have you share that link in the comments after the show. But thank you, Ted, for being with us. Thank you for doing good work, caring about our children, pouring into them, which then affects adults and the whole world. So thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you to our listeners. If you have questions or comments for myself or Ted at any time, whether you're watching this live or in the reviewing it later, recording, please reach out, and we are happy to encourage you and share ideas for you through you navigating disruptions. Take care and have a great afternoon. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you. Bye.